Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Agile Uprising podcast. We have got a panel of AU Discord members today. So we got a little game for our intros. AU Discord community member, what's your persona? Who are you and what's your persona? Mike.
I'm Mike C, and my persona is me.
Hey.
I love that Claudia didn't start. She's like, all right, you all swim on your own first before I speak.
Hey, you know what? You take it, Merm.
My name is Chris Merman. I'm here to press the record button mostly. And my AU persona is a troll of Jay Hershko's entire existence. And he is a coward for not being here.
Oh, you forgot Schneider.
Good troll.
No, I'm not talking about him. He doesn't exist in this world today.
Even better.
Who you want to hand it off to?
Listen, there's no better way that I like class up the joint, Sam. Like, let's have it, buddy.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam Hogarth. My AU Discord persona is a confused Geordie, which is local in the UK, and I am a weird Halloween kid. I love everything Halloween. That's me.
I think Sam's persona is more like, let me say what you said, but smarter and better. And I think that's what he does every single time.
I can't word
and I've
good.
got an article or YouTube video to back it up.
I will not. Who's next, Sam?
I think I'm the one that's left.
Yeah,
So I'll pick myself. I'll pick myself for Sam. So Stephen Kellogg, also known as Skellogg on the Discord, and I would probably be best known for the response, "It depends," or for nagging people to try to get their next task done. That would be my Discord persona.
Very true.
I feel
Good
like that should
nagging,
be
though.
like when anybody types the words "it depends." I feel like your face should just, like on Slack, you know, you could have those like
yeah.
It'd be like your face just looking disapprovingly like that.
Either that or anything that ends in a question mark just pops up the answer, "It depends."
Or let me summon Simon Sinek and why? What's your why?
There you go. That's true.
All right,
And
bring us
I'm
on.
your host. Oh, can I do this thing?
Yeah, you can.
And I'm your host at Claudia OG and Claudia Orozco Gomez. And my AU Discord persona is the Agile Ancillaries enthusiast, imposter syndrome infected, hot mess mama, badass baby agility coach. Boom. Mic drop.
Save the best for last.
The fact that there's automatopoeia in your persona description, you win, Claudia. As always, you win.
Mike, you want to tell us a little bit about our panel?
Yes, we have a distinguished panel today. It's an international group. We have representation from 4 different countries. We have someone from France, someone from the UK, a couple folks from the United States, and somebody from the country of Texas, because Texas is a different place.
God bless Texas.
I love that he feels like he had to justify that one.
But not Jerry Jones. Fuck you, Jerry.
All right. So
What are we talking about today, Claudia?
what are we talking about today? So, you know, about 2 years ago, we started hearing about this thing called COVID-19. And then, boom, another onomatopoeia. It's a pandemic and work from home is our new norm. And then fast forward to now, and we're ready for a 2-year retro. You ready? All right. What's our mood? What's your smiley? What's your mood?
Big sigh. big sigh.
Is that an improvement, Sam? Let's start with that. Is a big sigh an improvement?
I would say kind of yes and no, because I recall just before lockdown in the UK walking through a supermarket with very dystopian messages over the PA. Everything is fine. just take what you need. Don't be worried. Our staff are here to help you. As you would look down rows upon rows of empty shelves of toilet rolls gone, food gone. That was terrifying. I think the fact that it's kind of blurred into just a generic sigh, not to kind of lessen the devastation that's happened, but yeah, it's kind of better, I guess. I'm managing.
Stephen, what about you?
Definitely better than where things were. I think in part because working remote is more acceptable now. It's because it's been required. And so that's changed things. I think there have been a lot of positives that have come out of it as well. We'll get into that as we go along. But for me, better than it was 2 years ago, for sure.
Mike,
What
what's
about
your mood?
Claudia? Do you feel in a better place?
Better, different, but if I had to do it with a smiley, it's one of those smileys, you know, with the like weird googly eyes.
Right.
That's my mood. We'll get to it. Mike?
My mood is slightly impatient and also cautiously optimistic. I feel like I'm on the verge of being able to escape from my little four-wall prison here.
Ooh.
God, I'm jealous. I think Stephen and Sam said, well, I mean, everybody's kind of spoken to like some things are better, some things, you know, are about the same as they were. Honestly, we've just, the world, like the way that we work has been remade in our lifetime, right? Like in record time in our life. How many people can say, how many generations can say how we work completely changed overnight? I mean, the Industrial Revolution has happened. Like there have been multiple world wars. There have been, you know, there was the internet revolution. There's, you know, there was all the, you know, the web 2.0 stuff that, you know, there was the crash, you know, that was the .com crash. All of these things happen and they're talking about like turning points, but like none of that holds a can. I mean, maybe the Industrial Revolution where we went from farmland to, you know, warehouses and factories overnight. Like that's pretty dramatic as well. But other than that, I mean, we are looking at the single greatest change in how we work. You know, since then, I mean, that sounds bombastic, but does anybody disagree?
I
You're
thought
right.
you were supposed to be like the one bringing the jokes. Look at you going getting serious on that.
Yeah, I mean,
this is
the real paradigm shift, really. You know, the Industrial Revolution brought people from the farms into the cities. COVID-19 has got us back out again, back into our homes. And now we're kind of thinking maybe we don't need to go back into the city centres, into the offices as much as we did. And that changes everything about how we work. Because primarily, like if you have anybody in your team working remotely, regardless of how many are in the office at that point in time, you're still a remote working organization. As much as you pretend that you're not, you still need to use the remote working tools we've developed and acquired knowledge of over the last few years in a hybrid context. So maybe we're not going to be fully remote by being forced into it out of necessity. We'll be in a situation where we can do this by choice. We can choose how we work, we can choose where we work, and we can try and maximize the benefit from doing that. But this isn't going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get to the hybrid in a sec, but I want to ask out there, where were you?
I just need to state that I sleep there. I have, for the last 2 years, I have gotten up and walked 4 feet and sat down and I started working. If anything, the pandemic has made me a bed maker because my bed is shown every day. I make my bed every freaking day now. So thanks, COVID. I really appreciate it. Is that the joke you were looking for, Claudia?
That's a good one. That's a good start. Let's
So I
keep
was
with
going to
that one.
comment on the
So-
last piece real quick. I do think that we're going to hit, especially over this next year, a big pull, even more so, I think, from the bigger corporations trying to reset as much as they can to work back in the office. And I think there's going to be a big pull from the employee side to fight that for a lot of people. So I think, yes, it's done a big pivot. I do think there's going to be a pretty strong kind of whiplash attempt of trying to pull it back to what was the norm. I don't think it's going to happen.
And it's starting, isn't it? But
Yeah.
we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Sorry.
So it's okay.
Shut up,
You're
Steve.
an uncontrollable bunch. So if we
True.
go back 2 years ago, what was your situation like, or where were you when you learned, oh, all of a sudden things are going to change? What was going on?
I'll
So
start.
I-
This is Mike.
Go ahead,
I
Mike.
was
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead,
I was right here. I was already 50-60% remote, and when I wasn't here in these four walls, I was on a plane out to a client facility, or at a conference room in a hotel doing training or facilitating a session or whatever. So it was kind of like, okay, well, I don't get to leave my four walls as much. I was already kind of set up for it, but it was like, okay.
It was a treat, right? Like since you didn't have to be, I was in the same boat as a consultant, Mike. Like you could go to the office when you needed to, when you wanted to.
Yeah.
I got on a plane when a client said, hey, be here to go do this.
Yeah.
But if there weren't those things, I had the flexibility if I wanted to. Fridays, a lot of the times were work from home days for me. And I always treated those days, whether it was a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever, I always treated it as a treat. Well, then the treat left because it was the norm, right? So
Yeah.
I would think that's really what changed, is that working from home for most people, not all, because like it or not, remote work was already part of our accepted practices, provided they were from folks working in another country, halfway across the world, that were at a different bill rate. I hate the word offshore because that minimizes those folks that are doing amazing work over there. It's like we're on and they're off. Like, like what, like who's,
Yeah,
why
so
do I
All
have,
those not us people.
It's a rather conceited perspective.
Yeah.
Funnily
Yeah.
enough,
Oh,
I was
you
working
other
at the
person.
time. I was working at the time for a nearshoring consultancy. So what we were doing was largely working with organizations in our time zone, but in a city where the rates were much cheaper. And so I was actually used to hybrid working from an office. I would go to the office, my team of consultants would be there, and we would work remotely with our clients and their developers. So we were kind of used to having to participate virtually in big meeting rooms at a bank down in London.
I think Chris hit an interesting point, that the option kind of went away. Now this was all you had. You had no choice. This was it. This, completely remote. So the ability to periodically connect in person with people left, and that was the biggest change that I found. Plus, just the general social anxiety that time period brought.
Oh, right.
So I was
What
in a
about you,
little bit of
Peter?
a different spot. I was driving over an hour each way to an office where they required us to be in the office. And we had been asking for a very long time to get at least a couple days remote. And it was the no, owner wants butts in seats. And when COVID hit, it finally was, hey, we're not comfortable being here. And had enough of those that he finally said, okay, if you're not comfortable being here, you can go work remote, and everybody left. So then we started working remote, and magically all our numbers went up for what they were tracking. So I was a bit different from that perspective. one of the things that changed is we used to do phone calls with clients, and that shifted to doing video with clients. Because at the time when, before COVID, we would actually go on site to clients and have a meeting and then leave. Well, and phone calls in between. So this just shifted all of that. So we basically didn't do any more phone calls. We mostly set up video meetings.
Yeah, and we weren't like, back when you did the video meetings, you weren't required to be on camera. We thought, we as Agilists, we thought, oh, I'm gonna be the people, the people person, and say, I care about you as an individual. So let me see your face. Like, let's connect. And we became real advocates of that. And then every HR department was like, everybody turn your cameras on all day, every day. And we're like, but what if I need a break? Like, we didn't have camera fatigue. Zoom fatigue did not exist in our vernacular then. I just finished a half day of planning, and my camera was on 90% of the time because I was in charge and I wanted people to see my face. That's hard for people to look at you like trying to not pick your nose on camera. But like, I'm just, you know what I mean? Like that or eat lunch. We planned through lunch kind of a thing, right? Like, what am I supposed to do? Just shoving almonds in my face because I don't want them to, see me like sticking a
Slurping some soup or something.
Yeah, like, hey, let me gnaw on this.
That's an interesting point, because when we first went remote, there were a couple of us that did have our cameras on and everybody else didn't. And there was a big back and forth with, you don't want to force people to turn their camera on, but you want to ask, but you don't. But so yeah, it's been interesting.
But you want to see faces at some point?
Yeah. Plus IT departments had all kinds of budget for travel, for things like planning events or, strategy workshops. Like, I never had a client not willing to spring for. I would cross my fingers and go, please don't need us in person. Please don't need us in person. Because it would be just nice to have a break. And they're like, nope, get your ass here, right? Fly here, plan this, facilitate this, be here, right? And so I got good at owning a room. And there's not a room to own anymore. I mean, we can say like this is a room.
You're owning this room. You're owning
No, I'm
it.
not.
You
No, I'm
got
just
it.
talking a lot. That's different. And after I said
There
I'm
is,
talking.
is different. Yeah.
So I was in a very different place. I was a subcontractor at the time, and in the early stages of my pregnancy, and the company that I was working for all of a sudden figured out, oh, we've got so many subcontractors and not enough office space. So we got to get rid of our subcontractors. They got to work from somewhere else. And I was a person who felt like I could not work from home. I need to see people to do my job properly, running from meeting room to team to meeting room. And so this news hit and I thought, oh God, how am I going to do my job? Like, how am I going to talk to people? And that was then.
If I can, I want to tag off something Chris was saying just a minute ago about owning the room. And I've seen this in practice and read about it as well, is that going to remote and video where everybody's on an equal sized square kind of lessens a little bit of the power gradient. And I'm curious if that has been your all's experience or not.
I feel like I mostly undermine myself on that.
Steve and I are wearing button downs. That means we're more important than the people wearing t-shirts.
Well, you see, this is the thing. I will
what about
tend
the
to
person
undermine
wearing pajama
myself.
pants? Like, I'm wearing pajama pants here. You can't even
That's
see
the
that.
thing. I'll wear something
I was
smart
wearing
on
pants.
top. I'll wear
wearing
something
pants,
smart
yeah.
on top, and then I'll stand
Or
up
am I?
and have Sonic the Hedgehog pajama bottoms on. And it's just like the meaningful message I've tried to deliver is just being undermined by a little bit of 90s whimsy.
That's why you do all your meetings standing up, so that you don't ever have that problem. Which is something I have done this year, by the way.
All right.
Are you excited for the new
this.
Sonic movie, Sam? Is that what this is about? Like you need to see Jim Carrey with a giant mustache again?
Well, if we're going for 90s throwbacks, then yeah, sure.
You and my 10-year-old son are in the same boat if you're interested in a new Sonic movie coming out, and that's not a bad thing. Sorry, Claudia, you wanted to talk real stuff.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to, carry on with our retro. There's always a disruptor, isn't there? No, because we started going down this route. So I've got a phrase for you to complete. Unlike working at the office, when I work from home, blank, fill in the blank. And we're thinking.
Okay, I'll go first then. When I'm working from home, I have more time to study. I think I've always been somewhat like nervous if I was watching a conference talk in the office, or I had my head buried in a book, that I wasn't being seen by somebody else to be doing the right kind of work. Like I wasn't, at the coalface programming. And now, if I want to take a book to the loo for a bit, or go downstairs and read and have a cup of tea, and just kind of check on my blog feeds or something like that, that's cool. That I feel like I can take that time away from the desk just to kind of recharge and not feel like somebody is evaluating my performance.
Sounds like you were in a very safe environment before.
Or I'm paranoid. It could be that.
If I had said all of that in Texan, y'all would be barbecuing me. Like Sam says words way better than I do. Like, let's just start there. Okay. What about you, Stephen?
I think in part it's nice to be able to just take a few minutes and step outside, let the dog run around, or go actually have lunch with the family, or those types of things you just can't do when you're at the office, obviously. So that would be one of them. And not doing an hour plus on a commute each way is fantastic. The thing that has done though is made me have to find other times to listen to podcasts or that type of thing. So it's an interesting twist.
I'm just remembering back to the days when I was a QA lead, and I would bring these zip, like these not zip, but these flash drives, these thumb drives that had all my BitTorrents that I downloaded from the day before, and I'd plug them into my work computer, and then while I was doing my job, I'd have on my other screen, I'd have what I was watching for the day on there. So this idea of Sam, of you feeling shame of doing things in the office, I don't know if people of this podcast know, but I don't feel a ton of shame. So that might illustrate that further.
Every information security professional that's listening to this is just holding their head cringing at the plugging in a thumb drive.
No.
It's people like you why Stuxnet happened.
I have to get, no. Then I have to get into how my current MacBook that I work on now was set up by sysadmins that had never used MacBooks before, and they disabled iMessage.
No.
That's a fact. They disabled iMessage.
Actually, on that, has anybody moved job during the pandemic then? Because I did, and getting a MacBook set up remotely.
Me too. Oh.
Yeah, picking up a MacBook from an office while in lockdown was fun. It was kind of like, an elaborate pantomime style handoff because we couldn't get close to each other.
I'm gonna toss it now. Ready?
Yeah. Here.
Be sure to disinfect it, wipe it down.
Here's the equipment. My instructions were to go to the office, pick up the MacBook, go home, and await further instruction. And the first thing I had to do was type in a password. And it's like, well, bollocks, I didn't get that. So yeah, has anybody had any kind of equipment issues or anything like that around taking a new job?
I don't know that MERM can actually have an international panel, because Texas thinks it's funny when people say bollocks. Okay, it is funny.
It is funny.
I love it. Nobody can see that MERM is there, like with a huge kid smile. He said
everybody was laughing. Everybody was laughing. I barely understand what the word means. I just assume it's sort of it's kind of like swearing, but like not. So who cares?
Oh, can we
No.
say?
Claudia, your
We
question
say
was,
that.
Thank you, Mike, for
unlike-
bringing us back. All right, Mike.
un-
Unlike
unlike-
working at the office, when I work from home,
I have this schizophrenic experience. I appreciate the flexibility that I have to do laundry, to make lunch, whatever I want without having to think about it beforehand. The other part of my personality is wanting to pull out the hair that no longer exists and jump out the
Those
window,
hair.
because the feeling of isolation from not having human in-person contact is very it's draining. I get a lot of energy from human contact, and as much as I love seeing people on video, it's not the same.
anyone else feel like that?
I think my version of that is just I got to know the word loneliness in a new way. Because mind you, it's not like I work 8 hours and not speak to people. It's not like all my conversations are over text. If that was my life, like I get before COVID saying lonely, you're like, oh, well, if all you do is like work over Slack, like, of course you're not going to feel connected to people, jerkwad. Well, that's not what I'm talking about. I understand loneliness in a completely different way now. As I just told you all, I sleep 4 feet that way. And I'm just in a box. I'm in my bedroom. My wife works upstairs and I shut the door so that my loud ass doesn't like distract her in her meetings. Right. But I don't hear the buzz of things. I was the kind of person before COVID that I wanted to go. I loved sitting in a coffee shop, and like, we can say what we want about corporate coffee, but like one thing every Starbucks has is Wi-Fi and coffee with free refills with my Starbucks card. So I could go in and I could just do my thing. And it's like you got the energy from people being around you without having to actually interact with them. And so like I'm not completely extroverted, but I still got I got the interaction that I want. And then someone sit down next to you and be like, oh, how about them Cowboys or whatever, or some dumb thing. And you can have a couple of minutes of conversation, then move on. I don't have that anymore. I have to go, I take walks now and I'm on my phone and I'm on Microsoft Teams, like just messaging people because I'm like, let's have some interaction with your team members. Like, let's be like, hey, how's life? What's going on? Can I solve anything? Whatever. I do that while I'm walking on my phone now. And I used to just walk over to their desk and be like, what's up, person? How are you? Like that's a loneliness that you just don't get. Like you just don't get until you've had to go through it. I have felt that many, many days. Managing depression has never been a part of my work. It never has. I've struggled with depression, but a lot of times it's on a personal level. But and I've struggled with work before, but I never called it depression. I have legit had depression in various ups and downs and strengths. I don't think I'm struggling with it right now. But if you think about it, for 2 years, I have experienced a loneliness and a level of depression that I've never been able to identify. And it has affected me professionally to the point where I have stated on previous podcasts many times, because we podcasted about this topic before, I professionally regressed during the pandemic. And I'm just now starting to dig my way. And we can talk about how we are digging our way out of it, I'm sure, in a minute, Claudia and stuff. But like, let's just recognize the fact that we've all had to deal with depression in some way, shape, or form that we never had to.
One
Is that fair?
of my clients has a teenage daughter. This is her first year in high school. So her daughter spent 8th grade and freshman year of high school remote, or part of it remote. And her daughter is experiencing similar kind of emotions and feelings and challenges. It's been,
Yeah.
you're not alone, man.
Yeah, I think the other side of that's going to happen too, is that as people start going back to the office, there's going to be an anxiety of, wait, I'm not used to dealing with all these people.
An
So-
overstimulation. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I find it very hard to regulate the highs and lows when I'm working at home by myself. Like if I get really excited about something, I can't kind of share that enthusiasm effectively with other members of the team. They don't get to see and feel that in the way that they would if I was in the room spinning around the desk. But likewise, if something gets on my nerves, that can ruin a day, you know? Whereas previously somebody at work would have probably said, right, we're going out for lunch. Let's just go somewhere and have a rant. And then you'd come back in after your lunch break and just being a better place. And when it's you in a room I can barely stretch my hands out in, and your own thoughts, yeah, there's a reason why kind of solitary confinement is considered one of the most depraving forms of punishment you can do. We are inherently social creatures, and we've had that forcibly removed from us.
I feel like it's about the 700th day of March 2020.
Oh no. I think I don't now miss going to the office because I've become a hermit, a happy hermit. But I miss the spontaneity. So I miss just being, that random, oh, I see something's going on with you. Let's, like Sam was saying, let's go out for lunch, or just running the serendipity, running into somebody and, hey, okay, I haven't seen you for a while. Let's talk. And actually,
what are the positives of, there's the definite downsides, but there's some upsides too. Like, yeah, I find it when I need to just like shut off the world and focus, it's a lot easier.
Yes. So let's go towards that. Where are we now? So we're now 2 years into this thing. Some things have changed. We're saying it's end of pandemic, or it's no longer as it was 2 years ago. What are we thinking now about the past 2 years and about our situation now?
Like, okay, to ask that again in a little different way.
Okay, so we were talking about what we were thinking in the beginning of the pandemic and how working from home has impacted us. But now we're 2 years into this thing. And maybe some of us are going back to work. And Stephen was saying earlier, companies are probably going to start pulling us back into the office more. Some of us might already be in the office. So now, how are we feeling? Like, what's your wrap up for this retro? What's your impression?
We're rapidly redefining the way that we work. We are only 2 years into a generational shift. It hasn't been long enough yet for us to truly understand what the impact of this is.
Let me plus one to what Sam is saying and maybe add to it by I think that, so if we look at whether you're at a good way of working or a terrible way of working, and it's neither all bad or all good, right? There's some of both. I think the people that had a poor interaction model with their, that had fiefdoms, they had their own little org, their own little silo. I noticed people quickly trying to recreate their little realm and walled garden in a remote world by things like, hey, in Teams, only my team has access to this, only my team has access to that, or this Slack channel is for this, not that, or here's a document center, but not for you. So like permissions were used as a way of walling people off. And honestly, we're just now starting to realize, I think that in a way, our job as Agilists kind of started over, because we're having to recreate a better way of working in this new world. IT budgets are already borked long term, right? I just said IT budgets had all the room for travel if it was for PI planning or for a workshop, or they were bringing a consultant in. I think as a consultant, the day of being a traveling consultant, I don't know that's ever going away. My old firm is actively playing with Oculus now to try to have meetings, even though they don't actively do anything with it, but they're still playing with it as if everybody's going to put on a freaking mask to have a meeting kind of a thing. My wife's company tested out like different virtual meeting rooms so that they could, pilot it. And it also didn't go anywhere because the technology is not there yet. But the budgets for being together and doing things doesn't exist anymore. That money is now spent elsewhere. All of the IT budgets for things like getting together and traveling, in office perks, right? They send you swag now. They send you like a standing desk stand, or a new set of AirPods so that you can, or whatever, right? So instead of spending their money on like, let's get into the office and make it better, let's travel and like really make this workshop a thing. All that budget is accounted for now. I don't know that it's coming back. My new job that I just started, I told my boss, when can I get the team that reports to me, right? When can we get together? He said, I don't know when you'll be able to. And like, that's a hard pill to swallow. It's not just the fact that old crappy ways of working have been recreated in the virtual world, but there's no budget to fix it anymore. I got to do it all in this remote world, and all my success metrics now have to be recalibrated for post-COVID.
But isn't this the kind of space where agile principles and values are actually the most powerful? Complex, adaptive, uncertain, where we do small experiments and learn along the way. I think the agile community actually has quite a lot to give here if we play our cards right.
I disagree, Sam. Sorry, you and I are having a chat with everybody else. I apologize. I'm dominating. I disagree, because face-to-face communication means something different now, and individual interactions mean something different now. Like the building the right environment around motivated individuals works different. It's all interpreted differently now. We brought an old school sensibility to agility prior to COVID. And I have said, in many private conversations, I haven't said it on this podcast before, I think the manifesto is completely different and has a completely different meaning post-COVID. And I know that's a hot take, but I don't think I'm wrong.
I was looking more
I'm glad
towards
you don't think you're wrong.
I
You
was
agree with
looking-
yourself. That's great.
So thinking more about the kind of sense making, actually, of how do we kind of act and sense and respond to what's going on right now. You see discussions on LinkedIn about people asking, how many days in the office are you going to be spending going forward? And that's not the right question to be asking. What we actually need to say is, what are the best interactions that we can have, and where are those best performed? Is it in person?
Love it.
Yeah. Is it in person? Is it in virtual space? Is it by pre-recording something and sending a presentation around? We need to learn this.
So that you're what you just stated there, Sam. We can take something from how we coach organizations is start with the outcome. What's the outcome we want to achieve? Just like we would if we were writing epics or hypotheses. And then for that outcome, an in-person interaction is the bang is worth the buck. And a few thoughts along the train of thought you shared there just a minute ago, Chris. I believe that what we're seeing is a bit of a pendulum swing. So with the vast uncertainty that the pandemic created, for probably good reason, most organizations clamp down real tight. It's like we got to conserve money because we don't know what the future is going to be. And as we're starting to get comfortable with a different normal, there's still a holding on to the idea that we don't need to be in person. My belief hypothesize that over the next 18 to 24 months, organizations will start to see the downside to not being in person periodically, and the pendulum will start to come back a bit more towards the center. There's going to be outliers on either end, and the organizations that were poorly managed before will continue to be poorly managed after, likely. And those may be the ones that show up as you got to be in the office 3 days a week without regard for the value that being together brings. Better managed organizations will likely take a different approach. And there's some organizations that are taking a bit of a practical approach, and they're saying, you know what, intentionally, we want to create a culture that values people being together, and we're going to consciously take a hit on our recruitment, because it's a lot easier to recruit people if you don't have to come to an office. You get a bigger talent pool, and more people will be more likely to want to join your company. But there's some. So I know a guy who's CEO of a big tech company. He's not like Facebook big, but pretty good size. And he fought his board of directors. He said, we're going to bring our people back. And it wasn't because he wanted to count cheeks and seats, but he was thinking about the young talent in the company and how those people would not develop as well or as fully if they were working in the dispersed virtual environment. So his motivation was, I want to build the kind of talent pipeline and the culture and the resiliency that is possible. And it was a deliberate choice, and he knew he was making trade-offs, and he fought for it and got agreement. So yeah, I think we're gonna see the outlier, people on either end, and the middle is going to be a little more. It takes time for the pendulum to come back.
What's your take, Stephen?
I think so. Some quick comments.
Situation now and how you feel about it.
Yeah, I guess I was going to shift a little off of just me, but more commentary and whole, but I can shift back to me at the end. But, I think part of it is when you look at things like budget that was being discussed, there are big companies that are paying a lot of money for office space that they've signed 10-year agreements on. So there's a push there to, hey, we have these offices, we need to be using them, so let's pull people back. I know some big companies that actually have recently said, okay, we're going to completely go back in the office, and there are no waivers for working from home, period. I think they'll probably lose people over that, but I mean, if that's what they're going to stake their claim on, then, hope they survive. I think there are also small to mid-sized companies that have been in existence 10, 15 years that have been nothing but remote. So if we can take some of the stuff that they've learned and start filtering that into the mindset of those who are of the last 2 years incorporating remote, I think we'll see a lot of win there. My nephew was sent an Oculus, same thing, 3,000 people in the company. They tried to do a big deal, and he said, honestly, we just ended up back on Zoom to meet everybody and say hi. What we haven't gotten into are what are some of the benefits that we can actually use to help with some of this stuff. One of the things I've did at my last company when we went remote, and I've done it at the new company I'm at now, is we do a company lunch. We do it over Zoom. Right now, we do it every 2 weeks. It's a 30-minute slot.
You watch people eat over camera?
Yep. You used to watch people eat across from you.
I didn't watch them
That's
put food in their
very
mouth. No. It's different. It's different when you're sitting there and you can look all around. I don't have to watch someone go.
Well, you don't have to watch them do that either, but yeah, we do it. I mean, in my last company, we had some people that we all have our camera on, but at the last company, we had a couple that wouldn't. And yeah, and the rule is we're not talking about work, and that's part of where you get into
I love that rule.
it's the, hey, what did you do last weekend? What are you doing this coming weekend? What movies have you seen lately? I think adding things in some of the chat programs for a random spot, or like we have on Discord, we have out of the course of, think about Discord and the group. I haven't met any of you guys in person, but I consider a bunch of you guys my friends, guys and gals, sorry. Right, and I'd love to sit down and have a beer with you guys and gals, but I've never met you.
Very soon.
Well, if we can do that, that's true. If we can do that with a group of people that we've never met, but we've formed this community, we should be able to do that inside of companies and inside of teams in companies.
That's fair. It's very glass half full of you, Stephen. I'm not mocking you for saying that. Like, it's that we do need a dose of that from time to time, right? Like, no, you did watch people eat, Merman, and I kind of pushed back, but my pushback was lame. So I mean, that you're not wrong. It just, I don't know. I don't know why it feels different, but it just does.
No,
I will
mean,
never,
it does feel different.
I don't know
and-
how to ask my team members. My last company, they used to have something they called Beer 30, which is like at the end of the day on Friday, everybody just
Right.
gets on and talks about something different. I'm like, I've been on meetings with y'all all day long. The last thing you want to do is be on camera for another hour with y'all. And
yeah, I'm kind of with you
I
there.
struggle.
It's really weird, isn't it? Just kind of after the working day, drinking on webcam, getting pissed. It's not how I want to be spending my time. However, at an old job, we had one of the developers who in his spare time was a DJ for a type of Northeast music called Machina. Google it and bask in its confusion. And so
Sam, you may need to explain to the US audience what that sort of
Pissed.
getting pissed means.
Not the same.
Oh,
We
come on.
we
you
can
know
figure
what
it out.
that
No.
is.
We can, don't
Getting
explain it.
drunk.
The more you
context
explain,
context is king.
no. We know what it means. It's fine. If you don't know,
Oh, sorry.
you Google it.
Piss drunk.
Yeah.
There you
Does
go.
that help?
Yes.
All right.
I know
We're
that
good,
phrase.
we're good.
So what we did to try and vary that a bit on a Friday, we had a guy who's a DJ for a type of local music, and what he used to do was basically run a live session from the office. So he'd brought his decks in. They absolutely stunk of weed, but that's neither here nor there. You could tell that those turntables were certainly experienced, but yeah, and he would kind of just run a session, and it did feel a bit more like we had more of a purpose because we had the shared music in addition to just kind of playing a Spotify playlist or just sitting at our desks with a can of beer, and that was cool.
Yeah, that's a good
Silence
difference.
is bad on a podcast, Claudia.
I was going to make a comment though. I wanted
Silence
to.
is not. I just wanted to let it sit.
No, that's not
I
good.
want to do a shush.
That's not good on a
Sh-
podcast. All right.
It's good if you're
Uh,
in video, you can make it sit. I wanted to make a quick comment on the budgets because I do think you had a good point, Chris, earlier, but Chris does not sit in my brain. Sorry, Merm. I kept having to say, who is Mike referencing? Who's Chris? Oh, yeah. Anyway, I think part of the problem with budgets is that when things went remote, IT had to shift budget to support remote in a lot of companies. And they didn't have that necessarily in place before. I know because we've helped a lot of companies actually implement that. So that's where part of IT budgets went. I think if you look at, like I was mentioning, some of the companies that have been in business 10, 15 years, they actually had budget to get people together once a month, once every quarter or something. So I think you will, for those who actually start to embrace the remote, may start to shift some of those budgets to make that happen over time. Claudia.
We're coming up on time, so let's get this last question in. It's going to be a quick one. We'll go around the table. What's your personal, either remote or hybrid survival tip or takeaway? We'll start with you, Mike.
My takeaway is that I'm my own worst enemy sometimes. Something I thought would be a miserable experience, I found a way to make a positive experience from. And survival tip is to be kind to yourself, take care of yourself, and not don't let the madness that we used to feel in person translate over into the electronic leashes, and forgive yourself, and it's okay, just be who you are.
Thank you, Mike.
Sam, how about you? What's yours?
Remember that people are people and not boxes on a screen, and that everybody is trying to contribute and help and swim in the same direction in their way. It's easy to get mad at a box on a screen. It's less easy to get mad at a person. And that has been a mantra I've repeated to myself whenever I've gotten annoyed at a box on a screen, which is quite a lot of the time.
We all do it. Stephen.
I would say get involved, which is an interesting twist because everybody's so isolated, but because people can't meet in groups, there are a lot of meetups that are online, so you can get access to things you couldn't have before. So hitting different events, getting involved with things like Agile Uprising Discord. It's a great way to watch people make fun of other people. I mean, troll, I mean, give good advice to other people. But yeah, it's a good community.
Get that plug
All of
in.
the above.
I get an extra point now, right? Little podcast point.
Ooh, we got to start that. Merm, what's your takeaway, your survival tip?
I was
Perfect.
not a person that went for walks ever in my day. I don't know, like maybe I just thought I was too young and hip, which I'm neither of. I don't have any of either. But I have discovered that when you have more than a couple hours in front of the screen, go for a walk. Like walk the block for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm now that after watching dorky neighbors like pump their arms and shit when they're like wide swings, and I'm like, that'll never be me. Do you know what I do is whatever I'm wearing for work, I just throw, well, since it's been the weather, I just throw a hoodie over it. Sometimes I throw the hoodie on because I'm like, I don't even want people to see me, but I'm like wildly swinging my arms and like counting my steps and like, I closed my rings, fool. Like that's how I survive, is just move your body. Like it's not just enough to stand up. I'm sorry, Apple Watch. I need more than just to stand. I need to move my body. And before I know it, like the chills off me, I've sloughed off what I've had. And I'm like, cool, let's get it in. Sometimes I've done like 3 walks in a day. I don't care. There's room to, because there's not a commute anymore. And also nobody is even asking if you're doing 8 hours of work anymore. Like we stopped caring about that. Like, so just do what you need to do to be effective and get the job done. You know what? Part of me being effective means, an hour and a half every day, I'm going for a walk. All right. Sometimes I might have my dog. Sometimes I might just be by myself and I look creepy. I don't care. I'm not staring at you. Don't look at me back. Okay. Claudia, what about you?
Get up from your seat. Screen fatigue is real. Butt fatigue is real. And step away from the screen. Like I know I tell people all the time, so I'll be in workshops and we'll take a little coffee break, a stretch break, whatever you need. Please, I encourage you to step away from the screen, and then I don't practice what I preach. So get away from the screen and find what works for you. So I'm with you, Merm, on take that walk, get some fresh air, be the weird person that's like waving your arms around like a crazy person outside. That works.
Get some sunshine.
Get some sunshine, get
Vitamin
some vitamin
D.
D.
Do they have sunshine in Newcastle?
Sometimes.
It
It's been
happens.
snowing today.
Oh God.
No, it was 80 degrees this week in Texas.
You got to translate that.
No,
Hot
I'm
and
not
old money.
gonna.
It was hot.
Google it. I'm gonna do what Sam did. Google it. 80
I think
degrees
that's like
Fahrenheit,
mid to
whatever
high
that means.
Come on. Merm's from Texas. He doesn't translate anything for anybody.
Nor do we apologize.
It's like 25, 26 degrees Celsius.
He Googled that and he just wanted to make it look like he knows how to translate it.
There's a
Knowing
formula I
Mike, he
used to
probably
know it.
does know that. All right, so we are coming up on time if we have people that are still listening. So after all of that retrospectiving, do we have any shout outs or plugs or any information to share?
Discord. Find us on the Discord.
Find us on the Discord.
Link
We've got-
should be in the podcast notes.
They will be.
No pressure, Merm.
And hold on, we got a couple because we said this is a Discord community member panel show. So we're going to plug some people on Discord. We've got Sarah Baca, who's our clean queen, is giving a clean language talk at Agile 2022. We have
I'll
our
be there.
own, yeah, I won't. Francie Van Workis, who recently published a new book, The Employee Coach Handbook, and How to Grow a Strategic and Resilient Employee Coach Team and Individual Coaching Practice. Have we got anything else here?
Bring it home, girlfriend.
All right, I'm bringing it home. Tongue twister's coming. Thanks again to our awesome panel. And to anyone who is still listening this far into it, if you have enjoyed this episode, give us a review, a rating, or leave a comment on your podcasting platform of choice. If this is your first time tuning in, subscribe. If you want to join in on the chat, if you want to share your take, your retro on remote, the pandemic, or any other random meme that you want to share, join the Discord server. You can find information on agileuprising.com or the show notes. And finally, support from listeners like you will help us cover hosting and production costs. Production, one of them. So go to the show notes, become a Patreon. Until next time, this is the Agile Uprising podcast, signing out.